to get it on standby. Jonathan, you got anything on there back there for me? You don't have anything for me back there? Nothing? Can you come download this jump drive real quick? Here, just taking the whole thing.
Got a runner. Got a runner.
Do it. Woo. Very nicely done. Man, I love it. Love it. You can just let it scroll through if you want, Jonathan. Thank you. Appreciate you. Sorry. Man, Josh does a lot around here. Love you, Josh. Get well soon. I'm a faithful follower and believer in Jesus Christ. I have victory over drugs, homosexuality, and today I struggle with depression and low self-esteem, and my name is Amanda. Thank you. I was a fortunate daddy's little girl that started going to church with my cousins at a young age, and I liked it so much that I asked my parents if I could start having the church bus come and get me, and they said yes. Benning Bible Baptist would then become the church home of my grandparents and my parents, even getting to see my grandfather getting baptized and saved and baptized. I am an only child of a mother of mental illness and addiction to prescription medication. My father loved me unconditionally to the point of enabling me in my needs. My father protected me from harm when he was able, and even falsely pled guilty to charges brought against him by our family for the sake of keeping me from having to take the stand. My father was placed in prison on my 12th birthday, which left me feeling abandoned and alone, and being from a small community, we were the topic of everyone's conversation. People who once loved my father and my family chose to believe the rumors and turn their backs on me and my family. Church became my obsession to help me take my mind off the turmoil my family was enduring for the 8 years that we were separated. But after conflicts inside the church, my youth directors and pastor of the church left. Once again, I felt abandoned by people I trusted and felt comfort in. I was 19 years old, working as a jailer and dispatcher. I was married to my first husband, and during a same-sex relationship affair, I was introduced to methamphetamines for the first time, and then I was arrested on some unrelated charges. But during the court proceedings, I was confronted with my homosexuality, and for everyone in the courtroom present to hear. Of course, I had not come out to my parents, and certainly not to my husband at that point. My family and my husband were ashamed of me, and they all turned their backs on me. I was faced with emotions once again, alone, no husband and no mother, no father. The spiral lasted for years, where I tried filling the void with alcohol and relationships to help me numb the emotions, but to also help find who I thought I was. I tried finding my youth directors to help me reconnect with God and my old self. And that was when the church slammed its door in my face and kicked me out of church for being a lesbian. No, it wasn't Calvary. Leaving me with more emotions that I had no idea how to manage alone. I was filled with so much anger towards God. I made a choice to flee as far and as fast away from God as I could for 24 long years. I lived a life I wanted to live without God, being in one failed lesbian relationship after another, and nothing ever going right in my life. And looking back now, I believe it was God trying to get me to see that I should have been mad at the church and the people for judging me instead of being mad at Him and running away. But I found a woman when I was 31, the first hard breakup since my divorce whenever I was 19. The woman that I thought would be my wife betrayed me by cheating on me multiple times. When she chose someone else and was caught in her lies, I was lost. I was faced with my old self, multiple relationships, drugs, pills, and lies I told people I loved in order to hide my addiction. I also had a huge motorcycle accident, no helmet, and had to be flown from the scene, and 4 hours later I was sitting at home in my living room. By this time, my father and my mother had found forgiveness and acceptance in their hearts, and we had reconnected as a family once again. But it was not the same as before, as my father going away to prison. By this time, also, my mother started showing signs of her dementia and Alzheimer's disease, and not long after, my father's health declined. He had stage 4 lung cancer. It was left to me to care for both of my parents financially and physically. Mother didn't fully understand what was happening to my dad, and Dad couldn't come to terms with her mental decline and my struggle with addiction. The new job that I had working for a very wealthy employer gave me the benefits that paid for my father's chemo. When I thought it couldn't possibly get any worse, I found myself facing charges for credit card abuse and fraud. It was my word against theirs. I was fired from my job, and that meant my father's chemo treatments would end. Dad had to go back to work and provide for my family while I struggled. Dad had to go back to work, provide for the family while I was struggled with the possibility of going to prison and leaving behind my dying daddy, my declining mother. Soon after, while I was spiraling out of control in my addiction to meth and numbing my emotions from feeling like a failure and not taking care of my parents, on October 20th of 2020, Daddy died. My best friend set vigil with my dying father as my mother sat in her bedroom confused. And I locked myself away in my bedroom, trying to numb the pain as much as I could. I chose drugs over time with my dying daddy. I ran from the reality and couldn't face being alone and abandoned again. Now I have what's left of my mom. We were soon evicted from our home because I couldn't provide for us. I had to pack up our entire home alone because no one would help me because of my addiction. We were at the mercy of anyone that would take us in. While on bond conditions, I failed my drug test and tested positive for meth, which landed me in drug court and gave me 5 years probation. And I knew at a moment's notice I could be called for a drug test at any time. But my addiction was stronger than ever, and my spiral was now a tornado wreaking havoc on my mother and my life, because now she was my responsibility. I tried to play the system and I didn't care, but I failed. Seeing the damage addiction was making on everyone, everything, and me, I got tired of living a life where I was powerless in my addiction and had no control, and I knew I could not stop doing drugs on my own. So I did the unthinkable. I tested God. Is there more on there, Jonathan? Okay, keep going through them. Go ahead. There you go. I tested God. I dropped to my knees and I said a prayer. God, please heal me and deliver me from this addiction. If you'll do this one little thing for me, then I'll do whatever you want me to do for you. Well, as long as you don't kill me or put me in a nursing home. without even knowing at the time I was submitting Principle 5, and that is to voluntarily submit to every change God wants to make in my life and humbly ask Him to remove my character defects. 2 days after saying this prayer, my 75-pound dog pulled me out of my truck and I hit the concrete harder than ever, rupturing an abscess in my cervical spine that I knew nothing about. 5 days later, on August 31st of 2021, my mom finds me paralyzed from the neck down and barely breathing because of the poison from the abscess shutting down my internal organs and killing me. I was flown to Plano and emergency surgery was performed, and the doctor told my mother and my friend Tammy that I'd never have any quality of life. I'd never walk or talk or get out of the bed, and my mother said, "Mandy wouldn't want to live that way. Go ahead and pull the plug." And Tammy said, "No, wait." She's still all there, and she can communicate by blinking. Let's ask her what she wants to do. So they came up with a series of test questions, and I passed, and we got to the last one, and she says, "I'm about to ask you the hardest question you've ever had to answer in your life." And she said, "Do you want to go to heaven and be with Daddy, or do you want to fight?" And of course, I chose to fight. She said, "Now, let me show you what fighting looks like. Fighting looks like learning how to breathe, swallow, eat, talk, and walk. Fighting looks like being depressed and not wanting to get out of bed some days. Fighting looks like not giving up. Do you still want to fight?" And I gave her a blink with tears rolling down my face. There's nothing more powerless than not being able to move your hand, to scratch your nose, or to get up and go to the bathroom, or to roll over in the bed. I had nurses to come and roll me over every 2 hours. And when you have a tube in your throat breathing for you, you can't even try to make a whisper and talk. The only noises you can make are. I put that in there for Buppy. I had a lot of time to think and pray. And the only verse I could ever remember was Philippians 4:13. It is I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And I am very careful at this point of what I pray for. With God's healing power, I regained feeling all over my body and was sent home after being in the hospital for only 2 months. I had to move in with my best friend Tammy and her husband Tracy. I had to put my mother in a nursing home, and we lost our home and our pets. In January of 2022, I had to go back in the hospital due to basically an internal decapitation. Again, I was put on life support measures, and a half halo was screwed onto my head, and I was in traction for 3 long days. It was the worst 3 days of my life, but it had to be done in order to put my neck back straight on my head again so all the hardware could be put inside. They had to put 2 rods, a cage, and 17 screws. And another 2 months in the hospital, and I had to must learn how to swallow and eat and walk again. And then here comes April of 2022, and I have to go back in the hospital for the 3rd and final time. I had a small cyst on my spine that they had seen before, and they said, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Well, it broke. This time I'm physically and emotionally weak, and it takes me longer to recover because I just had 3 major surgeries back to back. So again, with learning to eat and walk again, you'd think I'd have it down by now. 2 more months in the hospital, and a month in Honey Grove Nursing Home. By the way, did I mention that I had hepatitis C the first time that I went into the hospital, and I didn't have it the second or the third time that I went in? So, ask me how the abscess got there. Well, without me ever knowing, so I gave it to myself because unfortunately I was an IV drug user, and I thought that I was being clean by washing out my old syringes and reusing them. And evidently something somewhere had a bacteria on it. When I put it in my arm, it kind of traveled and resonated at the base of my spine and hung out there until the day that I fell. God knew exactly what he needed to do to open my eyes. And of course, me being a Pinkston and stubborn, he had to go to the extremes to do so. But after all, I myself did pray for help, and he answered. I don't know of anyone that's walking and talking and tell a story like mine because they don't exist. God has a perfect for me in my story, and if I could tell one person, that would be don't quit and pray to God, or ask any leader here at CR, and we can direct you in the right direction. And also use Principle 3, which is consciously choose to commit all my life and will to Christ in the care of control. On October 2nd of 2022, I got rebaptized and rededicated my life to God. I also changed my clean date to this day as well. And I just got my 1-year chip, and I also got dismissed from drug court. I am a faithful member of Calvary Baptist Church, where I'm over the transportation ministry. I help teach Sunday school where I'm needed. I'm a leader in CR, active in the NA Surrender Group, and the Getting Ahead program. And at this time, I'd like to thank you all who took the time to come see me in the hospital and the nursing home. Also those who smuggled apple juice or yoo-hoos into the hospital, and sent cards and gifts and texts, and most of all those that prayed for me. I'm only here today because of the miracles God has done for me. Thanks for letting me share.